Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching stars disappear. Not the slow fade of dying suns, but instant vanishing acts that left nothing behind. Empty space where entire solar systems used to exist. "Sir, we're getting another distress signal," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster. Her voice shook slightly. "It's from the Kepler station. Commander Alex Ryan is reporting strange readings." Jake nodded. Alex had been his friend since their academy days. The man never panicked, so if he was sending warnings, something was very wrong. "Put him through." The hologram flickered to life, showing Alex's worried face. Behind him, Jake could see the chaos of an emergency situation. People were running. Alarms were blaring. "Jake, thank God you answered," Alex said quickly. "We've lost contact with the Proxima colonies, all of them. The sensor readings show nothing there anymore, not even debris." "What do you mean, nothing?" "I mean empty space, like they never existed." Alex ran his hand through his hair. "The science team thinks something is eating reality itself." Before Jake could respond, the transmission cut to static. His ship's sensors immediately picked up massive energy readings from Alex's location. Then those readings vanished too. Jake stared at the empty space on his screen. His friend, the research station, 12,000 people, all gone in seconds. "Captain," his science officer, Dr. Emma Walsh, called out, "I'm detecting similar energy patterns moving toward the inner systems. Whatever did this is heading for Federation space." The Federation. Humanity had joined the galactic community 200 years ago. They worked alongside 11 other species, each bringing their own strengths. The telepathic Vailani helped with communication. The aquatic Morthans were master engineers. The crystalline Zephyrite created beautiful art and music. Together they had built a peaceful civilization spanning thousands of worlds. "Send an emergency message to Federation Command," Jake ordered. "Priority Alpha. We need every ship we can get." But as the hours passed, Jake realized this threat was bigger than anyone imagined. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Entire star systems were vanishing. The enemy, whatever they were, moved faster than any ship. They consumed planets, stars, even the space between them. The Emergency Council met on Nexus Prime, the Federation capital. Jake watched the proceedings from his ship, still patrolling the danger zone. Admiral Lisa Carter represented humanity, alongside delegates from the other species. The chamber buzzed with different languages as universal translators worked overtime. The Vailani spoke in musical tones, their large eyes reflecting fear. The Morthans communicated through color changes. In their skin, even the normally calm Zephyrite flickered with anxious light patterns. "The data is clear," announced Dr. Kethvar, the lead Vailani scientist. "These entities consume the fundamental forces that hold matter together. They leave pure void behind them." "We've identified them from our ancient records," added the Zephyrite delegate, her crystal body chiming softly. "They are called the Devourers. Our ancestors fled from them millions of years ago." President Maria Torres, Earth's representative, leaned forward. "How do we fight them?" The chamber fell silent. Finally, the eldest Morthan spoke, his skin shifting to deep blue patterns. "In our history, no one has ever successfully fought the Devourers. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be stopped. They exist only to consume." "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Carter asked. "Evacuation," said Dr. Kethvar. "The ancient portal network still exists. We can flee to other galaxies, As our ancestors did, Jake felt his stomach drop. Abandon the galaxy? Leave everything humanity had built? The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to make a stand. Others argued for immediate evacuation. As Jake listened, he noticed a pattern. The older species, those who had faced the devourers before, all favored running. Only the Aida, younger civilizations, wanted to fight. Finally, the vote was called. One by one, the species cast their decisions. The Vailani voted to evacuate. So did the Morthans. The Zephyrites chose to flee. Species after species made the same choice. When it came to humanity's turn, President Torres stood slowly. We've heard the arguments. We understand the threat. But Earth is our home. This galaxy is our home. Humanity votes to stay and fight. Shocked, silence filled the chamber. Jake felt proud of his species, even as fear gripped his heart. That is unfortunate, said Dr. Kethvar. We hoped you would see reason. The portals will remain open for 72 hours. Please reconsider. But humanity's decision was final. Over the next 3 days, Jake watched as massive ships from 11 species lined up at portal stations. Centuries of civilization packed up and shipped away to distant galaxies. The Vailani took their telepathic networks. The Morthans loaded their engineering knowledge. The Zephyrites carefully transported their crystal gardens. Some humans chose to leave too. Families were torn apart as parents evacuated children, or children abandoned elderly parents. Jake understood their choice, even if he couldn't make it himself. On the final day, Admiral Carter gathered the remaining human fleet. 3,000 ships of all sizes, military vessels, cargo haulers, even luxury liners. Not much against an enemy that had already consumed a quarter of the galaxy. I won't lie to you, Carter said over the fleet communication system. The odds are impossible. We're facing an enemy that eats reality itself. Every other advanced species in the galaxy has chosen to run. She paused, looking out at the stars that still remained. But we're not every other species. We're human. And humans don't abandon their home without a fight. Today, we stand alone. Tomorrow we'll show this galaxy what that means. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew had chosen to stay too. Amy Foster, barely 25. Dr. Emma Walsh, with 3 children back on Earth. Engine Chief Paul Martinez, who could have gotten rich in the evacuee colonies. They were scared. Jake was scared too, but they were here. The portals closed with flashes of light, taking the other species to safety in distant galaxies. Humanity remained, alone with an enemy that devoured worlds. In the silence that followed, Jake made a promise to his vanished friend Alex, to his crew, to his species. They would not go quietly into the dark. 3 months after the Vega battle, humanity had changed. Jake Morrison barely recognized his own species anymore. Every human settlement had become a military base. Children learned tactics alongside mathematics. Grandparents assembled ammunition between shifts at the factories. Captain, we have new orders from Admiral Carter, Lieutenant Amy Foster announced. She had been promoted twice since their allies abandoned them. Everyone was getting promoted faster now. Too many empty positions to fill. Jake reviewed the mission briefing. Another raid against Devourer supply lines. These hit-and-run attacks had become their specialty. Strike fast, strike hard, disappear before the enemy could respond. It was working, but barely. Dr. Walsh, how are our new modifications? Jake asked. Emma looked up from her engineering station. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had been working non-stop again. The quantum disruptors are installed, but I can't promise they'll work. We're basically throwing human engineering at alien physics and hoping something sticks. That had become humanity's approach to everything. When you couldn't match your enemy's technology, you got creative. Human ships now use tactics no Federation military academy had ever taught. They hid inside asteroid fields, launched surprise attacks from multiple directions, even used civilian ships as decoys. Captain Nicole Reed had become famous for her swarm protocol. Her squadron of small, fast ships would attack like angry wasps, overwhelming devourer defenses through pure numbers and chaos. Jake had seen her work. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Sir, incoming priority message from Titan," Amy announced. Dr. Benjamin Hayes appeared on the screen, and Jake was shocked by what he saw. The archaeologist looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 months, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Jake, we've done it. We've figured out how the reality anchor works." Jake felt his heart skip. The precursor weapon was humanity's only hope of stopping the devourers permanently. "Tell me everything." "The device doesn't just strengthen reality, it repairs it. When the devourers erase something, they leave scars in space-time. The reality anchor can heal those scars and restore what was lost." Benjamin paused, his expression growing serious. "But there's a cost." "What kind of cost?" "It requires a human operator. The precursor technology responds to our neural patterns, but using it drains the operator's life force. Completely." Jake felt cold. A weapon that could stop the devourers, but only by killing whoever used it. "How many could we build?" "With our current resources, maybe 50. Enough to stop a major assault, but not the entire devourer fleet." After Benjamin signed off, Jake sat in his captain's chair thinking. 50 weapons. 50 chances to hurt the enemy. But 50 people would have to die to use them. The first test came 2 weeks later. A devourer advance force attacked the Jupiter mining colonies. Commander Alex Ryan, somehow still alive after his station's destruction, volunteered to test the prototype reality anchor. Jake watched from a safe distance as Alex's small ship approached the enemy formation. The devourers had already begun their reality-eating process. 3 of Jupiter's moons simply no longer existed. "Reality anchor charging," Alex reported calmly. "Neural interface connected. I can feel it, Jake. It's like touching the universe itself." The weapon activated with a flash of brilliant light. For a moment, space itself seemed to sing. The advancing devourer ships stopped, then began to retreat as reality solidified around them. Most amazing of all, the 3 missing moons reappeared, restored from nothingness. Alex's ship went dark. When they recovered his body, he looked peaceful. The doctor said he had died instantly, his life force completely drained by the alien weapon. Admiral Carter made the announcement to the fleet personally. "The reality anchor works. We can stop them. But every victory will cost us someone we care about." Volunteers stepped forward immediately. Veterans who had lost everything to the devourers. Young officers who believed humanity had to prove itself. Even civilians who wanted to contribute to the war effort. Jake was amazed by their courage, but also heartbroken. These were good people choosing to die for a chance at victory. The second major battle came at Alpha Centauri. The Devourers had learned from Vega and brought a much larger force. Jake led his ship as part of a massive human fleet, Over 5,000 vessels now, including converted civilian ships armed with whatever weapons they could mount. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Today we're not just fighting for our colonies. We're fighting to prove that humanity deserves its place in this galaxy. The battle was chaos. Human ships darted between massive devourer vessels like insects attacking giants. Jake watched as Nicole Reed's swarm tactics tore apart an enemy formation, her pilots flying with suicidal bravery. But the enemy adapted quickly. Their reality-erasing weapons began targeting the human ship's weak points. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. "Reality anchor teams, you're clear to engage," Carter ordered. Jake watched as 5 volunteer ships moved toward the enemy fleet. Each carried one of Benjamin's weapons and a pilot ready to die using it. Sergeant Danny Cooper was the first to fire. His reality anchor created a bubble of stable space-time that trapped a dozen devourer ships. They couldn't erase what was inside the bubble, and human weapons tore them apart. Danny's sacrifice saved hundreds of lives, but Jake felt sick watching it happen. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, humanity had won another impossible victory. The Alpha Centauri system was saved, and over 200 devourer ships were destroyed. But the cost was terrible. Half the human fleet was gone. 5 brave volunteers had died operating reality anchors. And intelligence reports showed the main enemy fleet was still months away. Millions of ships that would make this battle look like a minor skirmish. President Torres addressed the survivors from Earth. Behind her, Jake could see the massive construction projects that had transformed his home planet. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded the world like a steel shell. The moon had been turned into a giant factory producing ships and weapons around the clock. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity will not surrender," Torres said. "We've proven that the Devourers can be fought and beaten. But our greatest test is still coming." She paused, looking directly into the camera as if she could see every human watching across the galaxy. "They abandoned us. Every species we called friend, every ally we trusted, every civilization we helped. They all ran when the darkness came. But we stayed. We fought. And we've become something they never expected." Jake knew she was right. Humanity had changed in ways their former allies could never imagine. They had become harder, more focused, more united than ever before in their history. The threat of extinction had forged them into something new. "The main Devourer fleet will arrive soon," Torres continued. "When it does, we'll be ready, not because we have the best ships or the strongest weapons, but because we have something our enemy doesn't understand and our former allies forgot." "What's that?" Amy asked quietly. Torres smiled grimly. "We have fire. Human fire that burns, bright enough to light up the darkest corners of space. And when this war is over, the galaxy will remember that when everyone else ran, humanity stayed and fought." Jake looked around his bridge at his surviving crew. They were exhausted, battle-scarred, and facing impossible odds. But they were still here, still fighting. In the distance, sensors showed new Devourer scout ships probing human defenses. The final battle was coming soon. Jake activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. Tomorrow we face the enemy again. We'll lose friends. We'll lose ships. Some of us won't see the next sunrise." He paused, thinking of Alex, Danny, and all the others who had died to bring them this far. "But we're going to keep fighting, because that's what humans do. We don't abandon our home. We don't surrender to the dark. We answer with fire." The galaxy had abandoned them. But humanity was about to show the universe what a mistake that had been. In the distant Andromeda galaxy, Dr. Kethvar the Wise stood before a massive viewing screen, his large Vellani eyes reflecting the light of alien stars. Around him, representatives of the 11 species that had fled their home galaxy watched, in stunned silence. "The humans are still fighting," whispered Deep Singer Azul, her aquatic form shifting colors of disbelief. "Our sensors show they've won another major battle." Kethvar nodded slowly. When they had evacuated through the portal, network 6 months ago, every species had assumed humanity would fall within weeks. The Devourers had consumed civilizations far older and more advanced. What chance did the galaxy's youngest species have? "They're doing something impossible," added Crystal Song Vel, her crystalline body chiming with confused harmonics. "Our quantum sensors detect reality anchor signatures, but that's precursor technology. No species has ever successfully operated those devices. Except humans, apparently," Kethvar said quietly. Back in their home galaxy, Jake Morrison was leading his ship through a field of debris that used to be the Rigel system. The Devourers had consumed everything here months ago, but recent intelligence suggested they were building something in the ruins. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead," Dr. Emma Walsh reported. "Whatever they're constructing, it's huge." Jake studied the sensor data with growing alarm. The structure was the size of a small moon, made from the same reality-distorting material as Devourer ships. "It looks like some kind of weapon." Lieutenant Amy Foster, now promoted to commander after 3 senior officers had died in recent battles, coordinated with the other scout ships. "Sir, Captain Reed's squadron is reporting similar structures throughout the galaxy. The Devourers aren't just consuming our reality, they're using it to build something." The truth was worse than anyone imagined. Dr. Benjamin Hayes, working from his laboratory on Titan, had been analyzing captured Devourer technology for months. His latest discovery made his blood run cold. "Admiral Carter," he reported via quantum relay, "I know what they're building. It's a reality bomb, a weapon that can erase entire galactic clusters. If they complete it, every galaxy within 1,000 light years will cease to exist." Admiral Carter's face went pale on the communication screen. "How long do we have?" "Based on their construction rate, 3 weeks, maybe 4. Jake felt his stomach drop. They had been fighting a holding action, thinking they just needed to survive until the Devourers moved on. But the enemy wasn't just trying to consume their galaxy, they were preparing to devour everything. Meanwhile, in the Andromeda galaxy, something unexpected was happening. The evacuated species had been monitoring their home galaxy through long-range sensors, and what they saw was changing their entire understanding of humanity. "They're not just surviving," Deep Singer Azul reported to the Emergency Council. "They're adapting, evolving. Look at these tactical reports." The data showed human military doctrine developing at an impossible rate. Ships that used gravity wells as weapons, fighters that could phase between dimensions, soldiers who had learned to operate precursor technology through pure intuition. "I don't understand," admitted Crystal Song Vel. "Humans were always considered the least advanced species in the Federation. How are they doing things we never thought possible?" Kethvar had been studying human psychology for decades. "Because they're desperate. When you abandon hope of survival, you stop being limited by what's supposed to be possible." The other species began to feel something they hadn't experienced in months. shame. They had called themselves humanity's allies, yet they had abandoned them at the first sign of real danger. Some of our people want to go back, Deep Singer Azul admitted, to help them fight. The portals are damaged, protested the Morthan delegate. The space-time distortions make return voyages extremely dangerous. So was staying to fight an impossible war, Kethvar pointed out. Yet the humans did it. Back in the home galaxy, the final preparations were underway. President Torres had authorized the construction of humanity's largest reality anchor yet, a massive device that required the combined life force of 1,000 volunteers to operate. Jake watched as the volunteers assembled on Earth's moon. Veterans like Commander Nicole Reed, who had lost her entire family to the Devourers. Scientists like Dr. Samantha Blake, who believed her sacrifice could save billions. Even teenagers who had grown up during the war and known nothing but conflict. "Sir," Amy reported, "we're receiving unauthorized portal signatures. Something's coming through from the other galaxies." Jake tensed, expecting another Devourer assault. Instead, his sensors showed familiar ship designs. Velani telepathy vessels, Morthan engineering ships, a few representatives from each of the species that had abandoned them. The lead ship broadcast on human frequencies. "This is Kethvar the Wise, requesting permission to assist in your defense." Admiral Carter took the call personally. "You left us to die, Kethvar. Why come back now?" "Because we were wrong," the Velani replied simply. "We thought courage meant knowing when to run. You've shown us it means knowing when to stand." The returning aliens were amazed by what humanity had become. Earth looked like something from a warrior culture's legend. Orbital fortresses, weapon satellites, and massive shipyards producing vessels at an incredible rate. Every human they met carried themselves with quiet confidence born from facing the impossible and refusing to yield. "Your people have changed," Kethvar told Admiral Carter as his ship docked with the human flagship. "They're harder now, more focused." "War does that," Carter replied, "especially when you're fighting alone." "You're not alone anymore. My telepaths can help coordinate your fleet movements. The Morthan engineers can improve your ship designs. The Zephyrite can provide quantum calculations for your reality anchors." Carter studied the alien delegation, a few dozen ships from species that had fled with millions. "Why should we trust you? You abandoned us once." "Because," Kethvar said, quietly, "you've already won the most important battle. You've proven that the Devourers can be stopped. Now we want to help you prove it to the universe." Jake's ship joined the massive fleet assembling around Earth, thousands of human vessels, supported by the few alien ships that had returned. It wasn't enough to match the Devourer armada, but it was more than humanity had ever hoped for 6 months ago. Dr. Benjamin Hayes made his final report from Titan. "The Reality Anchor network is ready. 57 devices placed at strategic points throughout the galaxy. When we activate them simultaneously, we'll create a reality storm that should banish the Devourers permanently." "What's the cost?" Admiral, Carter asked, though she already knew the answer. "Every human will need to contribute some life force to power the network. For most people, they'll survive but be weakened. For the 1,000 volunteers operating the devices directly, they won't survive the activation." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew had volunteered for the main reality anchor operation. Amy Foster, barely 26 years old. Dr. Emma Walsh, who had 3 children back on Earth. Chief Paul Martinez, who could have evacuated with his family months ago. They were scared. Jake was scared too. But they were here. "Sir," Amy reported. Sensors show the main Devourer fleet entering Sol system. Count is over 2 million ships. Through the view screen, Jake could see them coming. A dark tide of vessels that bent space. Around them, each one capable of erasing entire planets. At the center of their formation, the reality bomb pulsed with contained destruction. Admiral Carter opened communications to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is your final briefing. Today we face the enemy that every advanced species in the galaxy fled from. Today, we show the universe what it means to be human. Jake activated his ship's internal communications. All hands, this is the captain. In a few hours, we're going to do something no species has ever attempted. We're going to save our galaxy. He paused, looking at his crew. Good people who had chosen to stand when everyone else ran. Our allies abandoned us. The galaxy wrote us off, but we're still here. And today, we're going to remind the universe that humanity doesn't surrender. The final battle was about to begin. 2 million Devourer ships against a few thousand human vessels and their alien allies. The fate of not just one galaxy, but the entire local galactic cluster hung in the balance. Jake gripped his command chair as the enemy fleet approached. Let's show them what fire looks like. In the distant Andromeda galaxy, Dr. Kethvar the Wise stood before a massive viewing screen, his large Vellani eyes reflecting the light of alien stars. Around him, representatives of the 11 species that had fled their home galaxy watched, in stunned silence. The humans are still fighting, whispered Deep Singer Azul, her aquatic form shifting colors of disbelief. Our sensors show they've won another major battle. Kethvar nodded slowly. When they had evacuated through the portal, network 6 months ago, every species had assumed humanity would fall within weeks. The Devourers had consumed civilizations far older and more advanced. What chance did the galaxy's youngest species have? They're doing something impossible, added Crystal Song Vel, her crystalline body chiming with confused harmonics. Our quantum sensors detect reality anchor signatures, but that's precursor technology. No species has ever successfully operated those devices. Except humans, apparently, Kethvar said quietly. Back in their home galaxy, Jake Morrison was leading his ship through a field of debris that used to be the Rigel system. The Devourers had consumed everything here months ago, but recent intelligence suggested they were building something in the ruins. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead, Dr. Emma Walsh reported. Whatever they're constructing, it's huge. Jake studied the sensor data with growing alarm. The structure was the size of a small moon, made from the same reality-distorting material as Devourer ships. It looks like some kind of weapon. Lieutenant Amy Foster, now promoted to commander after 3 senior officers had died in recent battles, coordinated with the other scout ships. Sir, Captain Reed's squadron is reporting similar structures throughout the galaxy. The Devourers aren't just consuming our reality, they're using it to build something. The truth was worse than anyone imagined. Dr. Benjamin Hayes, working from his laboratory on Titan, had been analyzing captured Devourer technology for months. His latest discovery made his blood run cold. Admiral Carter, he reported via quantum relay. I know what they're building. It's a reality bomb, a weapon that can erase entire galactic clusters. If they complete it, every galaxy within 1,000 light years will cease to exist. Admiral Carter's face went pale on the communication screen. How long do we have? Based on their construction rate, 3 weeks, maybe 4. Jake felt his stomach drop. They had been fighting a holding action, thinking they just needed to survive until the Devourers moved on. But the enemy wasn't just trying to consume their galaxy, they were preparing to devour everything. Meanwhile, in the Andromeda Galaxy, something unexpected was happening. The evacuated species had been monitoring their home galaxy through long-range sensors, and what they saw was changing their entire understanding of humanity. They're not just surviving, Deep Singer Azul reported to the Emergency Council. They're adapting, evolving. Look at these tactical reports. The data showed human military doctrine developing at an impossible rate. Ships that used gravity wells as weapons, fighters that could phase between dimensions, soldiers who had learned to operate precursor technology through pure intuition. "I don't understand," admitted Crystal Song Vel. "Humans were always considered the least advanced species in the Federation. How are they doing things we never thought possible?" Kethavar had been studying human psychology for decades. Because they're desperate. When you abandon hope of survival, you stop being limited by what's supposed to be possible. The other species began to feel something they hadn't experienced in months. Shame. They had called themselves humanity's allies, yet they had abandoned them at the first sign of real danger. "Some of our people want to go back," Deep Singer Azul admitted, "to help them fight. The portals are damaged," protested the Morthan delegate. "The space-time distortions make return voyages extremely dangerous." "So was staying to fight an impossible war," Kethvar pointed out. "Yet the humans did it." Back in the home galaxy, the final preparations were underway. President Torres had authorized the construction of humanity's largest reality anchor yet, a massive device that required the combined life force of 1,000 volunteers to operate. Jake watched as the volunteers assembled on Earth's moon. Veterans like Commander Nicole Reed, who had lost her entire family to the Devourers. Scientists like Dr. Samantha Blake, who believed her sacrifice could save billions. Even teenagers who had grown up during the war and known nothing but conflict. "Sir," Amy reported, "we're receiving unauthorized portal signatures. Something's coming through from the other galaxies." Jake tensed, expecting another Devourer assault. Instead, his sensors showed familiar ship designs. Velani telepathy vessels, Morthan engineering ships, a few representatives from each of the species that had abandoned them. The lead ship broadcast on human frequencies. "This is Kethvar the Wise, requesting permission to assist in your defense." Admiral Carter took the call personally. "You left us to die, Kethvar. Why come back now?" "Because we were wrong," the Velani replied simply. "We thought courage meant knowing when to run. You've shown us it means knowing when to stand." The returning aliens were amazed by what humanity had become. Earth looked like something from a warrior culture's legend. Orbital fortresses, weapon satellites, and massive shipyards producing vessels at an incredible rate. Every human they met carried themselves with quiet confidence born from facing the impossible and refusing to yield. "Your people have changed," Kethavar told Admiral Carter as his ship docked with the human flagship. "They're harder now, more focused." "War does that," Carter replied, "especially when you're fighting alone." "You're not alone anymore. My telepaths can help coordinate your fleet movements. The Morthan engineers can improve your ship designs. The Zephyrite can provide quantum calculations for your reality anchors." Carter studied the alien delegation, a few dozen ships from species that had fled with millions. "Why should we trust you? You abandoned us once." "Because," Kethvar said, quietly. "You've already won the most important battle. You've proven that the Devourers can be stopped. Now we want to help you prove it to the universe." Jake's ship joined the massive fleet assembling around Earth, thousands of human vessels, supported by the few alien ships that had returned. It wasn't enough to match the Devourer armada, but it was more than humanity had ever hoped for 6 months ago. Dr. Benjamin Hayes made his final report from Titan. The Reality Anchor network is ready. 57 devices placed at strategic points throughout the galaxy. When we activate them simultaneously, we'll create a reality storm that should banish the Devourers permanently. "What's the cost?" Admiral Carter asked, though she already knew the answer. "Every human will need to contribute some life force to power the network. For most people, they'll survive but be weakened. For the 1,000 volunteers operating the devices directly, they won't survive the activation." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew had volunteered for the main Reality Anchor operation. Amy Foster, barely 26 years old. Dr. Emma Walsh, who had 3 children back on Earth. Chief Paul Martinez, who could have evacuated with his family months ago. They were scared. Jake was scared too. But they were here. "Sir," Amy reported. "Sensors show the main Devourer fleet entering Sol system. Count is over 2 million ships." Through the view screen, Jake could see them coming. A dark tide of vessels that bent space. Around them, each one capable of erasing entire planets. At the center of their formation, the reality bomb pulsed with contained destruction. Admiral Carter opened communications to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is your final briefing. Today we face the enemy that every advanced species in the galaxy fled from. Today, we show the universe what it means to be human." Jake activated his ship's internal communications. "All hands, this is the captain. In a few hours, we're going to do something no species has ever attempted. We're going to save our galaxy." He paused, looking at his crew. Good people who had chosen to stand when everyone else ran. "Our allies abandoned us. The galaxy wrote us off, but we're still here. And today, we're going to remind the universe that humanity doesn't surrender." The final battle was about to begin. 2 million Devourer ships against a few thousand human vessels and their alien allies. The fate of not just one galaxy, but the entire local galactic cluster hung in the balance. Jake gripped his command chair as the enemy fleet approached. "Let's show them what fire looks like." The final battle began with silence. 2 million Devourer ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their dark hulls bending light and space around them. At their center, the reality bomb pulsed with barely contained power, enough destructive, force to erase entire galactic clusters. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching humanity's last fleet prepare for the impossible. 3,000 human ships, supported by a few dozen alien vessels that had returned to help. Against any normal enemy, it would be suicide. Against the Devourers, it was something beyond suicide. It was the complete erasure of existence. All. "Reality Anchor stations report ready," Commander Amy Foster announced. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands trembling slightly. They all knew what was coming. Admiral Carter's voice echoed across the fleet. "Citizens of humanity, allies who chose to return, today we write the final chapter of our story. Will it end in darkness, or will it burn bright enough to light the way for all future generations?" Dr. Benjamin Hayes transmitted from his station on Titan. "Reality Anchor Network is fully charged. All 57 devices are synchronized. When we activate, the reality storm will spread across the entire galaxy within minutes. And the cost? President Torres asked from Earth. She would be one of the 1,000 volunteers directly operating the devices, using her life force to power. Humanity's last hope. Total, Benjamin admitted. Everyone connected to the network will give everything they have. But the effect should banish the Devourers permanently and restore everything they've consumed. Jake looked around his bridge. Every person here had volunteered for the direct connection. Amy Foster, who could have had a peaceful life teaching. At the academy, Dr. Emma Walsh, whose children were safely evacuated to the outer colonies. Chief Paul Martinez, who had turned down 3 offers to join the evacuation ships. They were going to die. They all knew it, but they were still here. Sir, Amy reported, the Devourers are beginning their final advance. The reality bomb is charging for detonation. Through the view screen, Jake watched as space itself began to bend around the enemy weapon. Stars flickered and went out as reality became unstable. If that weapon fired, it wouldn't just destroy their galaxy. It would create an expanding void that would consume everything within 1,000 light years. All ships engage, Admiral Carter ordered. The human fleet launched forward like a spear thrown at the heart of darkness. Jake's ship led, a squadron of converted cargo vessels, their hulls bristling with weapons that had never been designed for war. Around him, he could see Captain Nicole Reed's swarm fighters darting between massive devourer ships like angry wasps. The enemy response was immediate and devastating. Beams of pure nothingness swept through the human formation, erasing ships from existence. Jake watched helplessly as the UES Courage simply ceased to be, taking 200 brave souls with it. Reality anchor teams, begin the connection sequence, Admiral Carter commanded. Jake felt the device activate in his mind. Suddenly, he was connected to every human in the galaxy. 30 billion souls, all linked through ancient precursor technology. He could feel their fear, their determination, their desperate love for the galaxy they called home. I can sense all of you, President Torres said over the network. Every human who chose to stay and fight. Every alien who came back to help. We are one voice now, one will. The reality storm began at Earth and spread outward like ripples in a pond. But these ripples were made of pure creative force, strengthening the fundamental laws that held matter together. Wherever the storm touched, the Devourer's reality-eating weapons stopped working. Jake felt his life force being drawn into the network, but he also felt something else. Power beyond anything he had ever imagined. Through the connection, he could sense the true nature of reality itself, the delicate balance of forces that kept stars burning and planets spinning. "The bomb is about to fire!" Dr. Emma Walsh shouted over the chaos of battle. Jake could see it through the network. The massive Devourer weapon preparing to unleash destruction on a galactic scale. But something was wrong. The reality storm was interfering with its targeting systems. "All volunteers, focus on the bomb," Torres commanded. "Pour everything into stopping that weapon." 1,000 human minds joined together, channeling their life force through the reality anchor network. Jake felt himself growing weaker as his essence was drawn into the collective effort. Around him, his crew was doing the same, Amy's face pale but determined, Emma's hands steady on her controls even as her strength faded. The reality bomb tried to fire, but the reality storm was too strong. Instead of erasing matter, the weapon began to restore it. Systems that had been consumed months ago flickered back into existence. The Rigel colonies reappeared. The Kepler research stations materialized from nothing. Even the outer rim worlds that had been among the first casualties began to reform. "It's working!" Dr. Benjamin Hayes shouted over the network. "The Devourers are losing cohesion!" Jake could see it happening. The enemy ships were designed to exist in weakened reality, feeding on the breakdown of natural laws. But the reality storm was making space-time stronger than it had ever been. The Devourer vessels began to phase out of normal space, their exotic matter unable to maintain stability, but the effort was killing the volunteers. Jake felt his consciousness beginning to fade as his life force flowed into the network. Around him, he could sense others going the same way, brave souls giving everything they had to save their galaxy. Then something unexpected happened. Through the fading connection, Jake felt new minds joining the network. Not human minds, but alien ones. Kethvar the Wise and his telepathic abilities, Deep Singer Azul with her quantum engineering knowledge, Crystal Song Vel contributing her species' understanding of space-time harmonics. "We won't let you do this alone," Kethvar said through the network. Not again. The returning aliens weren't just observing, they were adding their own life, force to the effort. It wasn't enough to save the volunteers, but it was enough to ensure the reality storm would succeed. Jake felt a moment of profound gratitude. In humanity's darkest hour, their former allies had returned not just to watch, but to stand beside them. The reality storm reached its peak. Across the galaxy, every Devourer ship phased out of existence, banished to whatever dark dimension they had come from. The reality bomb, instead of destroying galaxies, became a beacon of restoration, healing the scars that eons of warfare had left on spacetime itself. Jake's consciousness faded as his life force joined the cosmic symphony. His last thought was of Earth, blue and beautiful, spinning safely in a galaxy made stronger by humanity's sacrifice. But death was not the end. Jake found himself standing in a place that wasn't quite space and wasn't quite time. Around him, he could see the 1,000 volunteers who had given their lives to power the reality anchors. President Torres was there, smiling peacefully. Commander Nicole Reed stood beside pilots who had died in the final battle. "Is this heaven?" Amy Foster asked, appearing beside him. Before Jake could answer, they were surrounded by beings of pure light. The precursors, awakened by the reality storm that had healed their ancient galaxy. "You have done something we thought impossible," the lead precursor communicated without words. "You have not just defeated the Devourers, you have made this galaxy stronger than it ever was before." Jake felt awed by their presence. "We just did what we had to do." "No," the precursor replied. "You did what no species has ever done before. You chose to burn bright enough to light the way for all others. Such courage deserves a reward." The beings of light offered them a choice: transcend to a higher plane of existence, or return to the physical galaxy to help rebuild what had been saved. Jake looked around at his fellow volunteers. To his surprise, most chose to return. They had fought too hard for their galaxy to abandon it now. "I want to see what we saved," Amy said simply. When Jake opened his eyes, he was lying in a medical bay aboard the UES Defiance. Dr. Emma Walsh was checking his vital signs, very much alive despite having volunteered for the reality anchor operation. "How? Are we alive?" he asked weakly. Emma smiled. "The precursors. They restored everyone who participated in the reality storm. Said courage like ours shouldn't be wasted." Jake sat up slowly, looking out the medical bay window. Through the view screen, he could see Earth spinning peacefully in the distance. But something was different. The planet looked more vibrant, more alive than he remembered. "Sir," Amy Foster said, entering the bay with a huge grin on her face, "you need to see the communication logs. Ships are arriving from all over the galaxy. The other species are coming home." Over the following weeks, Jake watched as the evacuated civilizations returned through repaired portal networks. But they came back changed. The Violani, who had once been proud of their ancient wisdom, now looked to humanity for guidance. The Morthans, master engineers for millennia, asked human shipbuilders to teach them new techniques. The galaxy had a new structure now, with Earth at its center, not as conquerors, but as the species that had proven what was possible when you refused to surrender. Admiral Carter, also restored by the precursors, addressed the reformed Galactic Federation from the rebuilt Nexus Prime Station. "We are gathered here today because one species chose to stay when all others." 6 months after the reality storm, Jake Morrison found himself in a situation he never expected to face. He was sitting in the captain's chair of the UES Defiance, not hunting devourers or fighting for survival, but escorting a diplomatic convoy through the restored Vega system. The stars here looked different now, brighter, more stable, as if the reality storm had polished them to perfection. 3 planets that had been consumed by the devourers were back, their surfaces teeming with life that had been restored from quantum echoes in space-time itself. "Captain, we're receiving another request for assistance," Commander Amy Foster reported. Her promotion had been made permanent after the war. "The Zephyrite colony on Vega Prime is asking for help with their reconstruction efforts." Jake nodded. These requests came daily now. Every species in the galaxy wanted human advisors, human engineers, human military trainers. The species that had once seen humanity as the youngest and least advanced civilization now treated them like living legends. "Tell them we'll send a team after we finish the Centauri mission," Jake replied. "Dr. Walsh, how are our new recruits doing?" Emma Walsh looked up from her station where she was training a young Villani engineer. The alien's large eyes were focused intently on the human technology that had somehow become the galaxy's new standard. "They're eager to learn," Emma said. "But they keep asking the same question. How did we make precursor technology work when no one else could?" Jake understood their confusion. Even humanity's greatest scientists couldn't fully explain it. The ancient devices simply responded to human neural patterns in ways they never had for other species. Dr. Benjamin Hayes theorized it was because humans approached problems with emotional chaos rather than pure logic, somehow matching the precursors' own chaotic creativity. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from Earth," Amy announced. "It's President Torres." The screen showed Maria Torres sitting in her rebuilt office. Behind her, Jake could see construction crews working on yet another expansion of the global defense network. Even in peace, humanity was preparing for whatever came next. "Captain Morrison, I have a new mission for you," Torres said. "We've received a distress signal from outside our galaxy. It's coming from the Magellanic Clouds." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Devourers. Unknown. But the signal is using human emergency frequencies. Someone out there knows about us and needs help. Within hours, Jake's ship was leading a small fleet toward the edge of known space. The journey would take weeks, even with their improved quantum drives. But something about the distress signal bothered him. How did beings in another galaxy know human communication protocols? Dr. Emma Walsh worked constantly during the journey, modifying their ships for intergalactic travel. The reality storm had made such trips possible by strengthening the fundamental forces that held space-time together, but it was still dangerous. "Captain, I'm picking up the source of the transmission," Amy reported as they approached the Magellanic. "Clouds. It's a human ship." Jake stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. "That's impossible. No human ships left the galaxy during the evacuation." But as they drew closer, the truth became clear. The ship was human in design but ancient, far older than any vessel in Earth's historical records. Its hull bore symbols that looked like a primitive version of human writing. "This is Captain Morrison of the UES Defiance," Jake broadcast on standard frequencies. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself." The response came in accented English that sounded strange to modern ears. "This is Captain Sarah Johnson of the Earth vessel Pioneer. We've been waiting a long time for someone to answer our call." When the two ships docked, Jake was amazed by what he found. The Pioneer was filled with humans, but they looked different, taller, with slightly larger eyes and paler skin. Their leader, Captain Johnson, appeared to be in her 40s, but claimed to be over 300 years old. "We are the descendants of Earth's first intergalactic expedition," she explained as they sat in the Defiance's conference room. "Our ancestors left Earth over 5,000 years ago, before your species developed faster-than-light travel." Dr. Emma Walsh scanned Johnson with a medical device. "The readings are incredible. Your people have adapted to life in intergalactic space. Your lifespans are extended. Your bodies are more resistant to radiation." "We had to adapt," Johnson replied. "We've been fighting the Devourers for millennia. Our ancestors discovered them before they reached your galaxy and have been trying to stop them ever since." Jake felt a chill. "There are more Devourers?" "Many more. The ones that attacked your galaxy were just scouts. The main Devourer force exists between galaxies, consuming the dark matter that holds the universe together. If they succeed, reality itself will collapse." Over the following days, Jake learned the true scope of the threat. The ancient humans of the Pioneer had developed technology beyond anything the modern galaxy possessed. They had ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that could repair reality faster than the Devourers could damage it, and most importantly, they had learned to work with other intergalactic civilizations. "There's an alliance," Captain Johnson explained. "Species from hundreds of galaxies all working together to stop the Devourers. We've been waiting for your galaxy to develop enough to join us." "Why us specifically?" Amy asked. Johnson smiled. "Because you're the first species to successfully operate precursor technology on a massive scale. The reality storm you created didn't just save your galaxy, it sent a signal across the universe that the precursor's true heirs had finally appeared." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just the saviors of one galaxy, they were the key to saving the entire universe. President Torres took the news with characteristic determination. "How long do we have?" she asked during the emergency conference. "The main Devourer force will reach this galactic cluster in approximately 50 years, Johnson replied. "But with your help, we can build defenses that will stop them permanently." Jake watched as the galaxy's leadership absorbed this information. The Vailani delegates looked terrified. The Morthan representatives were already calculating the engineering challenges. Even the normally calm Zephyrites were flickering with anxious light patterns. "What do you need from us?" Admiral Carter asked. "Everything," Johnson said simply. "Ships, people, technology, but most importantly, your willingness to teach other galaxies what you've learned. The universe needs teachers, and humanity has become the greatest teachers of courage the cosmos has ever seen." Over the following months, Jake found himself part of a new kind of mission. Instead of fighting for survival, humanity was now preparing to save the universe. Young humans were being trained not just as soldiers and engineers, but as ambassadors to alien civilizations beyond their wildest imagination. The galaxy that had once abandoned humanity now followed their lead willingly. Vylani telepaths helped, coordinate communications across intergalactic distances. Morthan engineers worked with human designers to build ships capable of traveling between realities. Zephyrite artists created beautiful monuments to commemorate humanity's victory over despair. But Jake knew the real test was still coming. The ancient humans had shown them wonders beyond imagination. Galaxies where entire civilizations existed as pure energy, dimensions where thought itself became reality, technologies that made precursor devices look primitive. "Are we ready for this?" Amy asked one evening as they watched stars being born in a nearby nebula, a side effect of the reality storm that was still creating new wonders. Jake thought about everything they had been through. A year ago, humanity had been abandoned by their allies and facing extinction. Now they were being asked to help save the universe itself. "A year ago, we weren't ready to fight the Devourers either," he replied. "But we did it anyway. This is different. This isn't just about our galaxy anymore." Jake nodded, but he felt the same determination that had carried them through the darkest hours of the war. "Then we'll learn. We'll adapt. We'll do whatever it takes." Around them, the galaxy buzzed with activity as billions of beings prepared for a conflict beyond anything they had ever imagined. But at the center of it all was humanity. The species that had answered abandonment with fire and was now preparing to light the way for the entire universe. The galaxy had abandoned them once. Now the universe was calling on them to lead the way home. 3 months after meeting Captain Sarah Johnson and the ancient humans, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the largest ship ever built in their galaxy. The UES Universe's edge stretched for 20 kilometers and housed not just humans, but representatives from every species in their galactic alliance. "It still doesn't feel real," Commander Amy Foster said, joining him at the massive viewport. Outside, they could see the swirling colors of intergalactic space as their ship traveled toward the Triangulum galaxy. Jake nodded. A year ago, he had been fighting desperately to save a single star system. Now he was part of humanity's first diplomatic mission to another galaxy entirely. The scope of their new reality was almost impossible to grasp. "Captain Morrison, we're approaching the rendezvous coordinates," Dr. Emma Walsh announced over the ship's communication system. "The Universal Alliance fleet should be visible soon." Jake made his way to the bridge, where Admiral Carter was coordinating with representatives from dozens of species. The bridge itself was a marvel of cooperation. Vylani telepaths worked alongside human communication officers, while Morthan engineers monitored systems designed with Zephyrite quantum calculations. "Admiral, sensors are picking up multiple fleet signatures ahead," reported Lieutenant Danny Cooper, one of the younger officers who had joined after the war. "The readings are incredible." Through the main view screen, Jake watched as the Universal Alliance fleet came into view. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Ships that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight floated next to vessels that appeared to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Some craft looked like living creatures, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "That's the Andromeda Confederation flagship," Captain Johnson explained, her ancient human, ship docking with theirs. The golden vessel is from the Whirlpool Galaxy civilization. The one that looks like it's made of pure energy represents the Sombrero Galaxy Collective. Jake counted ships from over 50 different galaxies, each one representing civilizations, so advanced that they made the old Galactic Federation look primitive. Yet all of them had come to meet humanity, the species that had somehow mastered precursor technology and saved their galaxy from certain destruction. The first meeting took place aboard a neutral vessel designed specifically for intergalactic diplomacy. Jake found himself sitting at a table with beings that challenged his understanding of what life could be. Some were energy patterns that communicated through color changes. Others were collective consciousnesses that spoke with thousands of voices at once. "Welcome, representatives of the Milky Way Galaxy," said the Alliance coordinator, a being called the First Speaker, who appeared to be made of living mathematics. "We have waited long for your galaxy to join our cause." Admiral Carter spoke for humanity. "We're honored to be here, but we need to understand what we're facing. Captain Johnson told us about the main devourer force, but the scale seems impossible." The first speaker's form shifted, displaying holographic images that made Jake's blood run cold. The main devourer fleet existed in the void between galaxies, a massive swarm of reality-eating entities that dwarfed anything they had faced before. Millions of ships, each one capable of consuming entire star systems. "They have been growing stronger for eons," explained a representative from the Triangulum Galaxy, whose crystalline body chimed with each word. "Every galaxy they consume adds to their power. Every civilization they erase becomes part of their collective hunger." "But you've been fighting them," Dr. Emma Walsh observed. "How?" "By learning from each defeat," replied a delegate whose species seemed to exist as pure thought. "Each galaxy that falls teaches us something new about their weaknesses. Your galaxy's victory was different. You didn't just survive, you grew stronger." Jake listened as the Alliance representatives explained their strategy. For millions of years, they had been fighting a defensive war, evacuating galaxies before the devourers could consume them completely. But humanity's use of reality anchor technology had shown them something new was possible. "The reality storm you created has strengthened the fundamental forces across multiple galactic clusters," the first speaker continued. "For the first time in eons, we have a weapon that can not only stop the devourers, but actively repair the damage they cause." "What do you need from us?" Admiral Carter asked. "Teachers," came the unanimous response from dozens of species at once. Over the following weeks, Jake found himself part of an unprecedented exchange program. Humans were scattered across the Alliance fleet, teaching other species how to operate precursor technology, how to coordinate reality anchor networks, and most importantly, how to maintain hope in the face of impossible odds. Jake was assigned to work with a species called the Architects from the Pinwheel Galaxy. They were master builders who had constructed entire solar systems from scratch, but they had never encountered anything like human determination. "Your species is unique," observed Chief Architect Zara, her six-armed form gracefully manipulating holographic displays. "Other civilizations approach problems with pure logic or ancient wisdom. Humans seem to solve them through controlled chaos." "We call it improvisation," Jake replied, watching as his human crew worked alongside alien engineers to modify a reality anchor for intergalactic use. "When you don't know the right way to do something, you try everything until something works." The AudioBook collaboration was remarkable. Species that had existed for millions of years were learning new approaches from humans who had barely achieved interstellar travel a few centuries ago. But humanity brought something unique to the Alliance. The fresh perspective of a species that had faced extinction and chosen to fight anyway. Dr. Benjamin Hayes, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor to the Alliance, made breakthrough after breakthrough. By combining human intuition with alien knowledge, he developed new reality-anchor designs that were hundreds of times more powerful than anything they had built before. The key is emotional resonance, he explained during one of his presentations to the Alliance Council. Precursor technology responds to the operator's emotional state. Most species try to suppress emotion for logical clarity, but humans integrate emotion into their decision-making process. Meanwhile, Captain Nicole Reed was training Alliance military forces in human combat tactics. Her famous swarm protocol was being adapted for use with ships from dozens of different galaxies, each one bringing their own unique capabilities to the fight. The Devourers expect logical, predictable responses, she explained to a group of alien commanders. They've been fighting the same way for eons. What they don't expect is creativity, chaos, the willingness to try something completely insane just to see if it works. But the most important contribution came from ordinary humans throughout the Alliance fleet. Young officers like Lieutenant Danny Cooper were forming friendships with alien crew members, sharing stories of humanity's darkest hour and how they had refused to surrender. These personal connections were creating bonds between species that had never trusted each other before. President Torres, now serving as humanity's ambassador to the Universal Alliance, addressed the entire fleet during their monthly assembly. "A year and a half ago, our galaxy abandoned us," she said. Her words transmitted to billions of beings across hundreds of ships. "We thought we were alone, facing an enemy we couldn't possibly defeat. But we learned something important in that darkness." She paused, looking out at the incredible diversity of life forms that now work together as one force. "We learned that being abandoned doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. It teaches you to rely on yourself, to find solutions others never considered, to keep fighting when everyone else says it's hopeless." Jake watched as beings from across the universe listened intently to his species' leader. The galaxy had abandoned humanity, but the universe had welcomed them as teachers and leaders. "Today we're not alone," Torres continued. "We're part of something bigger than any one galaxy, any one species, and when the Devourers come, they'll face something they've never encountered before. Unity forged through diversity, strength built from cooperation, and the absolute refusal to surrender." As the Alliance fleet prepared for the next phase of their mission, Jake felt the same determination that had carried humanity through their darkest hour. They had answered abandonment with fire once before. Now they would help the entire universe do the same.